We're having a very important conversation on the show this morning. Drug abuse. We're talking about the struggles, the challenges, and the victories as well. So if you're a young person, a parent, if you're interested about the future of this country and the president, this is a conversation you do not want to miss. By the way, you can be a part of it. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief across social media. And then, of course, using our WhatsApp platform. If you have a personal story you'd like to share with us, if you have anything you think will be vital to this conversation, send it our way and we'll be sure to deal with it. So let's get into this. We are joined on the program by three gentlemen. It's a big panel from our Lagos studio to our Abuja studio. And I'll start with the gentleman in our Lagos studio. We have Dr. Dokun Adedeji's former DG, CADAM Rehabilitation Center. Good morning and welcome to the morning.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And just right next to him is Ifedayo Oluwole, who's a survivor. You've gone through this and you've come out, and essentially you're here to share your story. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the show as well. And joining us from our Abuja studio is Dr. Femi Babafemi, who is the Director, Media and Advisory at the NDLEA, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the Morning Brief.
Good morning. It's my pleasure being here.
Absolutely. I think naturally the perfect place to start is with Ifedayo. Just to put a human face to this, to put a human story to this. And first, let me thank you for coming out to share your story. You're doing such a remarkable thing, such a vital thing to this conversation. So thank you for showing up to share your story, for becoming a shining light. But I'd like you to tell us your personal story of drug abuse and how you were able to get out of it. But basically, the story, how you started, what were the factors, and then we can now talk about the victories.
Okay, so for me it started gradually, unconsciously, let me say, from little things from secondary school, going to game centers in secondary school, taking part, when you go to these game PlayStation centers in secondary school, they offer you few things, you just drink and you don't even know what it is, until I got into the university and I was found in this space where I had to start taking stuff to keep myself together, and before I knew it, I became addicted to some of this thing to the extent that I could not even finish my my university education, and I had to leave at a certain level. And from there, I found myself on the streets of Lagos, just staying on the street, literally living by the roadside and sleeping, waking up daily, until one day I was so high and the church found me, and from there I found my way to rehabilitation and where we are today.
And this is you right now wearing a jacket looking so good. And what did you wish you knew then that you know now? Maybe the information you think you could have gotten there that could have helped you, the support system which you think you'll have had then that will have helped you not get it. What are some of those things, information and support system, that you wish you had then?
I think basically it's information, awareness, which is what I do now, creating awareness around it for young people, which is about a young person knowing the effect, the long-term effect of what you're doing. Because it's like when you tell a child, if you study medicine, you become a doctor, and you can make this money. Same thing, if you tell somebody, if you go into drug abuse, these are the effects. And you can see example in your society, create example. I remember growing up, we tell you, do you want to become a doctor like this person? Want to become a lawyer like Femi Falana? You see examples, same way there are examples of these people in our society. So the basic thing is for us to create an awareness among children and young people, which is basically the issue that we have now, because there's a prevalence of drug abuse in secondary schools, specifically private secondary schools, and which we need to create awareness around, and these children need to see that there's more to life than drugs.
Well, Ifedayo, thank you so much for your courage and for inspiring other people who are watching you right now, because I know that it must not be easy for you to want to come out and tell your story. Let me come to you, Mr. Adedeji. From your work as a former DG of a rehabilitation house, what are some of the most profound stories that you have heard from those that have gone through rehabilitation and have come out victorious? Particularly, what did you glean as factors that predispose them to want to indulge?
You know, interestingly enough, I say this, substance abuse addiction cuts across the whole segment of society. You'll be amazed that I have related with doctors, with nurses, with lawyers, with accountants who have been through this situation. So the thing is, it breaks my heart to see from what I've said that from just an experimental introduction, you get addicted because it depends on the scope of use. And so it's so important that we raise the awareness in the society. And it's so important that people begin to understand that this is the reality. Not as if, oh, some people. It's not about some people, it's about everybody. There's no profession that is not involved. If you go with me to the joint, I've seen a medical doctor in the joint who lives in the joint. He graduated 10 years ago. He's never practiced. So you can imagine. But one thing is that I have seen, you can't say this is the particular reason why people are taking drugs. Gamut of reasons.
Just list a few.
Let me just say, family background, the dissonance in family, the lost opportunities for young people today in our society, the availability of these drugs, the easy accessibility, the cheapness of the drugs, and the ability to concoct your own, and also the sense of hopelessness in young people. And I'm particularly about the family. Why do I say that? Parents think erroneously that the only way they can satisfy their kids is provide everything they need. Most of these kids don't need materials. They just need you to be there. At least from the people that have been in the program that have been with them, that's out of 10. It comes to 7. That's it. I never see my parents. They never care. Nobody discusses me with me. Oh, your parents say, oh, I need you to read medicine. I need you to be this. What about me? Where do I feature in this? Even when we take decision on their behalf. Say, oh, I know more than you because I'm your dad. You don't. That's the saddest thing. And we don't give the right examples to them. I mean, I give this example to them all the time about Wole Soyinka. Wole Soyinka read literature. There's nowhere in the world that is not known. So it's not about what you read. It's about the quality of what you read and the quality you put into it and what you make of it. I mean,
just over 10% of the whole population of Nigeria has been involved with some sort of drug abuse in some sense. Another figure says 40% of Nigerian young people between 18 to 35 are involved with this. You have a dashboard, you have a broad view of this. What is the figure? What is the statistic about drug abuse in Nigeria?
Yeah, okay. If you have to go to the statistics, the most authentic of, apart from our day-to-day operations, the facts and figures of our operations at the moment, we still have to rely on the 2018 drug use survey result, which puts the population of those who abused illicit substances in Nigeria the past year to 14.3 million. Which translates to 4.4% prevalence rate, which is almost 3 times the global average. Having said that, you also, and this also covers those between the ages 15 and 64. So, meaning that, and these days, there was a mention right there in your studio there that you have people who, these days, who are even less than 15, those in their 10, those who are 10, 9, and all of that, even primary school kids, you see them abuse illicit substances, and you also find those above 64 also who abuse illicit substances, meaning that the figure could have been more than that. And there is also a projection at the moment by the UN that globally there is likely to be in another 8 years now, thereabout, by 2030, there are likely to be an 11% rise in drug use globally, but in Africa there's likely to be 40%. Africa. And when you talk of Africa, we're talking of Nigeria because of our population, because of our size. And so that's why for us, this matter has to be dealt with decisively, not just by the agency of government that is saddled, that is leading this campaign, but it must be seen as a collective effort, starting from the home to the religious bodies to traditional institutions to all across the strata, across the society. So everybody must be involved. And
we'll come to some of those points as action point, but just to still dig deeper, and I'd like to come to you, Ifedayo, because for a lot of people, it might be tricky to relate. And as has been said, a lot of people think, okay, I feel sorry for you, but let me move on with my life. So it's sometimes tough to show empathy, which is very important, which is something that is really missing in this. So how does it work from the mind of someone who is struggling with substance abuse? I know that there's that sort of dependence, but doctor has said that most people do not want to. So how does it work? Is it that you keep getting drawn to it and you feel helpless? Maybe some people can relate with this and say, okay, I'm not the only one going through it. So how does it really work, the battle?
So in the real sense, the percentage of people in addiction are happy with addiction are very low. A good number of people in addiction wants a way out. Everybody wants a way out. It's just that way out that they've not found. So in most cases, people want an option that is relatable, an option that is realistic for them to leave that drug for. Because if a person leaves an addiction, it needs something else to hold on to. So most times we have seen, we have seen people who have left these drugs over time and have found themselves back in it. They genuinely left, but for one reason or the other, they found themselves back in it for some reason, because the expectations after they've left the drugs. Maybe imagine somebody, if a father promised a child, okay, if you leave this drug, I'm sending you abroad, I'm going to do this to you. Then the child, okay, I'm going to. Then the father and say, okay, just give me 6 months, give me a year, let me plant those. And when these expectations are not met and are no longer realistic, they'll be like, what am I even doing here? And so sometimes it's also the stigma and also the way the society don't let people like that feel among. People tend to, even though the person has a story and the person has left that over the years, there's still also this, there's a limit to what you can let this person do. And these are things that just make some people just think, what is the essence sometimes?
Do you go through that still, even now?
For me?
Yes, like the stigma, because we need to deal with that.
Not really, because over time, it's been 8 years. So over time, I have been able to made up my mind as regards drugs. I'll be able to decide what I want to do, and I talk more now, talk more to people, counsel people, and help people out. So it does not really get to me as a person, but there are people that still have these struggles with stigma. There are people that have struggles with it's not even stigma from society, it's just family. I'm currently talking, there's a guy I'm currently talking to who is in a family, religious leaders, and the guy is lonely in his family. He stays in the house, he lives in the house with the parents, but he's lonely in the house. The parents claim they brought us in to help him, but like I had a conversation with the parent that, do you really want this person? Are you really in the position to help this person out of this? Because sometimes when there's different, your intentions may not be the same thing with your actions. Some parents genuinely want their children out of drugs. They genuinely want them to stop using drugs. But are you ready to replicate it with your actions? With the things you tell them, with the things you show them? A child is struggling to come out of drug, and the child said he wants to step out, and you are telling him, don't go to that place again. No. How do you want that person to feel? Hope you are not going to that place again. These are some of the triggers for some people that, like, over time, those things get to people and they just cut off and they are back to where they are coming from.
Now you've touched on some things that seem to be a contradiction. You talked about how 90% of those who abuse drugs really are not happy doing it.
Absolutely.
But then they also find themselves those who have been rehabilitated also find themselves going back to it. On the one hand, how difficult is the rehabilitation process? Perhaps that's one of the reasons that those who are abusing drugs are not able to come out. How difficult is rehabilitation? What was rehabilitation like for you?
So the rehabilitation I went through was a full year rehabilitation, secluded environment, and it's tough. It's not like an easy stuff, something you're used to over the years, especially in the last months of, while I was on the last month before I went into the program. I was intense because I didn't have any other thing. I was not working. I was basically living off it on the streets. And now going into a space where you won't see those things, you won't have access to them. I knew people ran out of the rehabilitation center who could not, because of the way they were feeling, the withdrawal syndromes, the way they were feeling in their body, and they could not even stay. Because it's not. Can you
describe that feeling?
It's like a taste for water. Imagine you are very thirsty for water, and you could, like, they are telling you you can't drink water here. You will do anything to go in search of that water. There is a feeling within the body. It's not like it's an internal feeling, an urge from within that wants to just drag you towards that thing. The urge is so strong that you want to go back. So it takes a process of time, because the kind of rehabilitation we went through was also a religious rehabilitation, a Christian-based rehabilitation, where there is the counseling, there is also the spiritual aspect of it that has helped us over the course of the program. So it's a tough process. So even imagine somebody now going through that process and coming back to the society, and the society is hostile towards the person. There is most of the people blame them for going back, but it's not really their fault, because if these people feel love, if people go back to the joint, you feel loved at the joint. So
a sense of community.
Absolutely. So if somebody goes back to the joint, they're welcome. You are sitting there and everybody just welcoming you. You feel loved. They just on your first day back, they give you for free. You don't even have to buy. On your first day back, they give you for free. You don't even have to buy. The seller will just you're welcome. Take a welcome back package. So it's just as simple as that. So it's about a sense of a feeling of being among, a feeling of community with people, a feeling of being recognized. Because when people don't have that sense of recognition, they go to where they can get it. And these are some of the little things that even lead people into drugs in the first place. People want to be where they are loved, where they are accepted, where they are appreciated. That's where people want to stay. But if you're in a place where you don't get those things, the tendency you want to go back to where you are appreciated or where you are accepted is very possible.
A lot to learn there.
As he was talking, I was just remembering Maslow's hierarchy of needs or something.
Absolutely.
That came to my mind in that 5 sequence of hierarchy of need. But so I wanted to bring the conversation to the points of the people who are living in denial. They are literally on the verge. Now, he's talked about those who are already out there, they're on the streets. But there are people who may be watching right now. They are not on the street. They are not anywhere. We must also help them not to progress beyond where they are. So maybe you talk to us about addiction from your experience and denial, because somebody could be going through this addiction, and however you want to raise the conversation, it's not up for it, because maybe it feels, look, it's not that bad.
Right. Thank you. Let me touch first a bit on statistics.
Okay.
So that we appreciate the depth of where we are at. Femi said it. UNODC did a survey 2018, they published it. 14.3% of Nigerians did drugs the previous year. And that translated about like 15 million people. To bring the significance to it, the population of Mauritania, about 4 countries in West Africa, are about 13 million. Benin Republic is 13 million. So if you then look at 14 million Nigerians using drugs, that's the population of a nation. So if we don't bring those figures down to people, they also found out that out of 20 people globally, 1 will use drugs. In Nigeria, it's 1 in 7.
What?
So if you get 7 people together, one may be using it. Out of 4 users in Nigeria, one is a female. And the greatest range of use of drugs in Nigeria is 25 to 39, which you said is productive
age.
So you can then begin to understand and imagine the consequences of what this would be to our country. But now if you look at your question as to, let me tell you, to themselves, they don't deny it, that they use drugs when they're friends, but they deny to you and others because they look at your, how do you look at them? How does society rate them? What do I do for a living? Can a doctor come into you and say, I use drugs? Of course not. So he denies it. No, I don't. I just use it occasionally. You know, Femi mentioned something about alcohol. Alcohol is the greatest use of drug available. But people don't say it. And if you begin to look at those sachet drinks, read the label, you'll be shocked. I won't mention them because of brand. Most of them that these young people buy this is about 42% alcohol content. And so, you see, the issue of denial comes from how the society rates them or looks at them. Jeremiah called me to deliver a paper at the last World Drugs Day in Abuja. It was on stigma and discrimination. If we don't deal with stigma and discrimination, people will not come out. The show of love, the understanding of their plight allows them to own up and they seek help. But in a society that was so judgmental, even within these religious circles, can somebody go to his boss in the office and say, excuse me, I'm on drugs? Of course he loses his job.
Right there.
And so there's denial. And I can tell you something, the NYC in Ondo State did, they did drug tests in about 3 years ago. 40% of coppers in their unit were on drugs. So where do they go to? Don't they go to offices? And so if any office today in Nigeria tells me that they don't have somebody who uses drugs, it's a joke. It's because they don't want to face the reality. So those are the things we need to begin to come to. And I like the fact that we are talking about this. I can tell you for free, use of drug should not be condemnatory. It's something that one falls into. I tell people, they say, why do they relapse? Why does a hypertensive relapse? If he doesn't take his drug, he will relapse. So we should look at addiction as a health issue, as a health concern.
Not as a crime.
It's not a crime. At all, it's not a crime. Those who sell, those who trade can be treated as crime. But the use, that's why Jeremiah has changed orientation. If they find users in the joints, they send them for counseling and rehab. They don't punish them because that's double jeopardy. The person himself is already a victim. So you are punishing for being a victim. And the same thing I say about universities. We must change. We were one of the people that caused the vice chancellors to change their paradigm. Don't expel them. Don't. They're just functional users, occasional users, social users who need help. That tell you they need help. And then so when you offer them help, they come back clean and they graduate. So the society in entirety must begin to change its view of this, not as a criminal intention. Criminal predisposition may occur, but it's not a crime.
So drug addiction is not the crime. Those who peddle the drugs are the criminals. Let me bring it to you, Mr. Baba.
I wonder if he agrees.
No, that's the new concept in NDLEA.
Yeah, I wonder if you agree. But in addition to that, Mr. Babafemi, walk us through those figures published by government agency yet again, 14.2 million. What's the prevalence rate in northern Nigeria? I ask this because one of our viewers has said that, that's one of the bane of the socioeconomic problems in northern Nigeria. That's on the one hand. This is a double-barreled question for you. Last year, your agency published that it secured more than 2,000 convictions. From those convictions, what leads, are they giving us as it relates to banditry in Nigeria? Can it help us to also, progress with investigations as to those who are perpetrating that crime in northern Nigeria? Perhaps those who are supplying them drugs that makes these crimes to thrive.
Very well, thank you there. I'll tell you that indeed, when you talk of prevalence, we have to first look, sometimes some of these things are based on perception, what people say, especially if they don't have access to the facts and the figures. But then if you have to look at the country, the entire country, you see that you find the southwest region has the highest because of the situation of Lagos, a cosmopolitan state, which has a 30% prevalence rate, and so that affects the figures of the southwest. But then when you look up to the northeast, you discover that the figure has dropped to basically around 12%, northwest and north central, and I think north central actually has the lowest in the country. So it's not, but then coming to the nexus between substance abuse and crime or criminalities in parts of the country, there is no need, there is no point denying that from our operations, from our interactions with our security forces in the theaters of this battle, we do know, and even from some victims, we also do know for a fact that the people, the kind of things you see people do, for instance, going to kidnap people either on the highways or in their homes, you can't do that with just clear minds. Definitely these people are under the influence of mind-altering substances, which, and the moment they lose their minds, the moment they lose their senses, then they have the propensity to do things that ordinarily they cannot do in clear minds. And so there is a nexus between substance abuse and the security challenges we have in parts of the country, whether you talk of terrorism, that's Boko Haram insurgency, whether you talk of insurgency in the northeast or you talk of banditry in the northwest, kidnapping for ransom in north central, and the security challenges in the southeast, south and southwest of the country. All of these, at the basis of them, is the issue of substance abuse. Because more often than not, when you see security forces, even in our own operations, when we've intercepted quite a lot of consignments going into the camps of these bandits or criminal elements, and we've intercepted them on the highways and even in some of the places, and there have been confessions on who are the beneficiaries of the consignment. So apart from that, again, we have also seen that our security forces on the front line, in some cases when they clear some camps of these people, they have also discovered a whole lot of assorted illicit substances in those camps. And people who have also been there have also come out to confirm that indeed these people are perpetually either sniffing or smoking or taking these illicit substances, popping pills, taking these illicit substances. So it's a known fact, it's a confirmed fact, it's something that is empirically proven that indeed these people are not doing what they are doing with clear minds. They are indeed being influenced by these mind-altering substances.
It's also been said that some of these terrorists actually are in the business of selling drugs themselves, and that's another stream of income for them. And I know you have all of that information. You still haven't told us the thoughts or the philosophy of the NDLEA towards the users now, because I've seen reports of young people and the rest say, well, I was harassed, I was arrested, and the rest. So is it really true that that is the new thinking now? You see the peddlers as the criminals and not the users or the abusers in this case? Before I come to you, Fedaya.
I'll come out and be factual about this. When we talk about the law in Nigeria today, possession is still a criminal offense. If you are caught with any of these drugs, you are liable to imprisonment. But then, because the leadership of the agency today is dynamic and tries to do things in line with global practices, and so we also have to review some of these things to be able to, as part of the measures to curb stigmatization, to allow people who really need help to come out and get help. And that's why today those who are users will rather, when we arrest, for instance, if you raid a joint, when we arrest a whole lot of people from those joints, we take them and profile them. When we profile them in our offices, then we're able to determine who are the real users and who are the peddlers or those who are dealing or trafficking in these substances. But for those who are dealing or trafficking or who peddle these, would separate those ones to face the law.
Okay.
But
Mr.
for those who are users who may... Yes, please.
Pardon me, I just wanted you to make that point. Perhaps we'll build on it. But so, a lot of people are interested in this conversation, and I must tell you that there's been lots of comments across social media, and a lot of people are agreeing with what has been said and even sharing some of their experiences and the rest. But I'd like to ask you this, because we see a lot of young people, Gen Z body, whatever the expression is right now, it's now become a fad. Yeah, it used to be prevalent there, but it looks like it's on another level right now. So there are house parties, it's just the thing, it's the in thing. In fact, if you are not a part of it, if you're not using it, then you are probably you don't belong, literally. And it was something, it was prevalent then, but now it's really become a thing, and it looks like it's now established so well. So there are young people out there watching you and thinking, nah, you can't understand what we are enjoying right now. What would you tell them? Because you said that information is vital to help during this whole process. What would you tell that young person who seems to be having a great time right now, partying with friends, the rave, going to house parties, cookies, squishy, colos, the list goes on and on?
You know this.
Well, I'm a journalist.
So let me start from a video from a Aproko doctor yesterday. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, where Aproko doctor posted a video where he showed two brains. He posted a video of a brain that has not taken alcohol before, how it is, and a brain that takes alcohol and how it is and how it looks. And that thing, I went to the comment section and people were just making a joke of it. And thought that is the right, because some of these things affect what you do. I want to make an example. And people can have different effects on some of these things, but I'm going to share a personal experience. And it's a live TV, and I have friends watching all over. My first year in university, first semester in the university, I was probably one of the best students in my faculty. I took tutorials, mathematics, and I would have people come to me to teach them in tutorials. By the end of my second year, I have the worst results in my department. No, there's an effect that comes with some of these things. There's an effect that you don't see it comes in the long run. Some of these people eventually have started forgetting things. You see a young person that was told something a few minutes ago, ask the person the same question, the next minute.
Or early dementia or what?
It's not dementia, it's an effect. So there's some of these drugs is lapse. Okay, so there's some of these drugs like Refnol. If you take Refnol is a drug that makes you be in another world for a few minutes. That you are not.
Quite popular.
It's very popular. So you won't even know what is happening with you at the time. I remember I watched full seasons of Spartacus on Refnol, and I can't even remember a single episode.
Wow.
So it's
I like the depth you're bringing.
No, I'm just saying, so these are some of the drugs these people are currently taking, young people are taking in the society, and some of these things have a long-term effect on the health and on their life, even as a whole, because I try to do studies and research on some of these things, and I see that in the long run, you will discover as a young person that you will start having memory loss specifically.
Even after rehabilitation?
Sometimes even after rehabilitation, because of the long-term effect of some of these things. Some of these people are so addicted to some of young people are so addicted to some of these drugs that they practically live on it. They practically live on some people. The first thing they do when they wake up in the morning is probably smoke. I know a guy that if he does not smoke, he can't eat.
Oh, so that's like the appetizer.
Yes.
And it's perception.
And it's perception. Funny enough, it's a perception. He thinks if he does not smoke, he cannot eat. He will tell you it is.
It's not an effect of the drug, it's just a perception.
It's a perception, and it's a reason to continue taking the drugs.
Let me just add flesh to that. You know, one thing I always like to say to people, if for instance I say to you, I like dodo, or you look at it and somebody says, I hate dodo. And the same thing about drugs. When they take it the first time, somebody says, they told me it will make me do this, and he hasn't done so. Like a young boy who said, they told me if I take it, it will make me play football very well. But hasn't shown. And the boy forgot it. Whereas somebody will say, oh, it just made me feel cool. It's that coolness that they begin to aspire thereafter. And anything that does not, if everybody takes, does not give the same effect, is perception. Okay. Because if I give you paracetamol to take away pain, everybody has loss of pain. But if it gives me something else that other people don't feel, then it's a perception. And then you hold on to it that this is what it does for me. Some people say if I don't take stout, I can't sleep. So I asked him, before you met stout, how were you sleeping? So, you know, this thing about that federal has mentioned is so critical that we let people understand that people use drugs only to satisfy certain deficiencies. If, for example, somebody has low self-esteem, which is very common with young people. And how does it come? It comes from parenting. Femi spoke about intentional parenting. Parents think it's materials that these boys will know. And we say to our children, look at you. I don't think you can amount to anything. The way you are going, look at your brother. You are demoralizing the person, and he maintains a mentation that he can't do well. Unfortunately, if he now goes out, in school something happens, they say, it then begins to reinforce what the family has. So it's a lot of...
Let me come back to you, Feda. A lot of people are talking on X, and we're going to take those tweets, those posts pretty soon. At the 2010 World Cup, I think it was hosted in South Africa, I was at the TBS to watch that particular match as one of these centers. And one of the things they did there was that young artists, upcoming artists, will perform during the halftime. So I had the privilege of going to the backstage. And this, I said, upcoming, not Davido, not Whiskey. The smoke that was coming from the back was like chimney. Literally, I'm telling you. And that speaks to validation. And you made a statement that you went to help someone and you could see you were asking them, are you really ready to help your son and all of that? So I wanted you to speak to the issue of perceived loneliness and lack of support, because the best way to follow a story is to follow the character. You've been there, you've done that, you understand the nitty-gritty, that you could see that the parents are not willing or ready or are not showing commitment to that child's health. You could see, perhaps they are not seeing. So what exactly would you be telling parents? Because that's exactly where we're here. From a personal point of view, what should they look out for? How should they support? Because they could say, we've done all we can do. Maybe they didn't do anything at all by your own experience.
With all due respect to our parents, every parent wants their child to do well. Now, what happens is the pattern with which they want it. A parent that the child is in drugs wants that child to come out of drugs. Why? Is another issue. Some parents want their child to come out of drugs because they want the child to stop spoiling their name. Some parents want their child to come out of drugs because they are pastors and they want people to stop talking about their children that smokes. Why some parents genuinely want their child to come out of drugs to do well in life? So that will inform how that parents seek help for that child and how willing they want to help that child. So there are people who lock up their child, they are ready to continue to pay for rehabilitation, like the child don't be the rehab continuously and not come out. So one thing I want parents to look out for in this thing is, what are your intentions in the first place for wanting this child to come out of drugs? Why do you want this child to leave drugs? Are you ready to love that child unconditionally, irrespective of what he has done over the years? my pastor in church will say one thing, will tell you nobody rejects love. And that thing sticks with me. Somebody tell you nobody rejects love. If you show somebody true love, genuine love, nobody, that person will see it. They are not blind, they have feelings also. Yeah. But they feel love. When you go to this joint and you come, you give the people food, doctor, you go there, you give them food, they know people who come, they know when you want to come and interview them, they know when you really want to come and help them. Yeah. They can feel love themselves. They know when it is real, they know when it is not real. They know your intentions for wanting to help them. So the first thing as parents is let your intention of wanting to help that child be real. Okay. Be from the point of that you love them and show this love genuinely.
That's a very vital point, Ifedaya. Just run through some of the, let's run through some of the comments. Orebi Emmanuel saying that, I mean, what you're saying is actually true. There's something about people who take drugs. Their brotherhood is top-notch, which isn't common to other products. No matter how scarce the stuff is to them, they share it amongst themselves, and you made that point. Another point that has been made, and this is directed at the NDLEA, and this says the NDLEA needs to do a holistic scrutiny on their staff. Some of them it claims are agents of compromise. Most of the drugs seized are stolen and sold to drug sellers, and equally take bribes from the drug sellers, reasons why they sell it openly and boldly. That's from Orebi Emmanuel. So we're winding down, Mr. Babafemi, and I think it's only fair to let you have the last word on this as we wind down in about a minute of this conversation. There have also been calls for boosting the infrastructure in your rehabilitation center. I was speaking to one of the states and said the place is dilapidated. It actually looks like a custodial center, and I don't want to use the word we used to use before, rather than a rehabilitation center. So I don't know if it's a challenge of funding. In fact, people actually pay. I know they say you have to pay to actually get that care. I think 170,000 to get in, and you pay 50,000 naira monthly or something like that. But speak to us about what the NDLEA is doing, particularly for it within its staff and for the rehabilitation center as well, in about a minute or less.
All right, thank you very much for that. For the allegation, I think it's not just enough to say they do this, even though in any human community you cannot rule out some infringements, but then I can tell you that indeed we have quite a lot of mechanisms in place, and anybody found doing the wrong thing would definitely be punished. But then I think largely, if we talk of the new NDLEA, our officers and men are largely professional, and we take accountability very seriously because, like I said, we have a monitoring task force that goes all out for things like this. It's pretty difficult for anybody to want to, tamper with exhibits where you have about 3 keys and no single individual can access the place without the other 2 or more people. That's that. Again, the leadership of the agency, especially on Jan Mara, when he came, one of the first things he did was also to set up the office of a provost marshal in response to, to take care of things like this. And I can tell you that indeed that office has been doing enormously well to make sure that we eradicate all of this. And staff welfare has also been taking top notch to be able to take care of some of the needs of the staff, even though they may not be enough, but then, we may not have gotten to meet all their expectations, but I can tell you we're not where we were some 3-4 years ago. Having said that, I'll come to the rehabilitation facilities. That may not be, yes, the rehabilitation facilities, at the moment, we have virtually in all our commands, that's the treatment and counseling centers we have in all our commands across the country, but we know we are improving on the standards, and that's why the federal government approved some 6 new ones, model rehab centers for us, where we just where we not only treat and counsel people, we also enable them to acquire some skills before they go out into the society, so that they don't go back into those triggers that actually brought them into substance abuse. And at the moment, we have about 2 that will almost be ready, one in Abuja and the other in Enugu.
Okay.
And so we'll continue.
We look forward to that.
Funds are provided for this, we'll definitely continue to upgrade.
Absolutely, and we'll be working with you and others on this one to ensure that we at least find an end to this menace. Mr. Femi Babafemi, Director Media and Advisory, NDLEA, thank you so much for your time, as well as Dr. Dokuma Adedeji, former DG CADAM Rehabilitation Center. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you very much.
Ifedayo, thank you so much for sharing your story. Ifedayo Oluwole, he's gone through this 8 years ago. You've been clean and you're doing some good work with other people, other young Nigerians. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We'll go to break now. When we return, we'll be having, will I call him the chess king, joining us on the show. Tunde Onokoya is our guest next. You may have seen him, the fantastic work he's doing with chess in slums, Africa. We'll be actually playing chess with him on the show today. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us.